Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into Aldous Huxley's incredible book, The Perennial Philosophy. It's basically a massive collection of wisdom from all over the world that tries to answer one of the biggest questions we can ask.
And that big question is this: is there some kind of universal truth, a single underlying reality that all the world's spiritual traditions are trying to point to? From Christianity to Buddhism to Hinduism. Are they all just different fingers pointing at the same moon? Huxley's work is a fascinating deep dive into that very idea.
So, to get our heads around this, we're going to walk through 5 key ideas that really build on each other. First, we'll look at what Huxley calls the highest common factor. Then we'll explore the idea of the divine ground. After that, we'll get into a really powerful phrase, that art thou. See how a simple story about salt makes it all make sense. And finally, we'll touch on the huge difference between just knowing something and actually experiencing it. All right, let's jump right in. In this first section, Huxley puts a name to this universal truth that he's found woven through so many different cultures and so many centuries of thought.
He calls it the Philosophia Perennis, which is just Latin for the perennial philosophy. So what does that actually mean? Well, it's really 3 things in one. First, it's a metaphysic, the idea that behind our everyday world of stuff, there's a divine reality. Second, it's a psychology, the idea that deep inside our own soul we have something that is similar to or even identical to that same divine reality. And third, it's an ethic, which says that our ultimate purpose, our final goal in life, is to know this ground of all being. Now, I love the way Huxley puts this. He's not looking for the lowest common denominator, not some watered-down generic belief that everyone can agree on. Nope, he's searching for the highest common factor, the most profound, the most essential truth that all these great traditions share at their very core.
Okay, so let's see how this idea gets broken down into 2 main principles. This is where it starts to get a little more concrete. So the first part is pretty straightforward, right? There's this ultimate reality, this source of everything that he calls the divine ground. But it's that second principle that is the real game changer. It says that you and we can actually know this reality directly, not just believe in it, not just read about it in a book, but have a direct personal experience of it. That's a pretty radical claim. And that idea of a personal connection brings us to maybe the most powerful and, personal expression of this whole philosophy. It's such a core idea, it's actually the very first thing Huxley talks about in the book. And it's all captured in this ancient Sanskrit phrase, tat twam asi. Just 3 short words, but they hold a universe of meaning.
So what does it mean? That art thou. It's saying that your innermost self, what the Hindu scriptures call Atman, isn't just a part of the ultimate reality, our Brahman. It is Brahman. There's no separation. Your truest identity is the same thing as the fundamental reality of the entire cosmos. Just let that sink in for a second.
And what's so amazing is that this isn't just an idea from ancient India. Here we have a quote from Meister Eckhart, a Christian mystic from the 14th century, saying the exact same thing. He says we think of God as being over there and us over here. But he says this is not so. In true knowledge, the knower and the known become one.
And we see it again here with the 9th century Sufi mystic Bayazid of Bistun. Listen to that language. I went from God to God until they cried from me in me, O thou I. The journey isn't to some external place. It's a journey inward until the very distinction between I and God completely dissolves. This is what makes the philosophy perennial. It just keeps popping up everywhere.
Okay, I know this is all pretty abstract and mind-bending stuff. So to bring it all down to earth, Huxley shares this beautiful, simple story from an ancient Hindu text. So the story starts with a father giving his son a little hands-on lesson. It's all about seeing the invisible essence inside the visible world. The son breaks open the seed and looks inside and says, I see nothing. And that's the whole point. The father explains that from that invisible nothingness, that subtle essence you can't even see, the entire giant tree comes into being. The most powerful reality is the one that's hidden from sight. So the lesson continues. This time, he takes a lump of salt, something you can definitely see and touch, and tells his son to put it in some water. Of course, the next morning, the boy looks in the water, and the lump of salt is gone. It's vanished. But when his father tells him to taste the water, it's salty. Not just at the top or the bottom, it's salty everywhere. The salt is invisible, but its essence is now in every single drop.
And this is where the Father brings it all home. He says, "My son, in the same way you can't perceive the true reality in your own body, but it's there. Just like the salt, the divine ground is the invisible, essential reality of our own being." And then he says those famous words, "And thou, Svedika too, art that."
But here's a really important catch that Huxley emphasizes over and over again. Just understanding the story or getting the philosophy on an intellectual level, that's not the final goal. There's a huge difference we need to make.
He draws this really sharp line between just thinking about the truth and actually directly apprehending it. On one side, you have intellectual understanding. That's the world of academics and theologians who write books and have debates about reality. But on the other side, you have direct experience. That's the world of the saints, mystics, and sages who actually live this reality.
This quote from the philosopher Shankara just nails it. He says, you don't cure a disease by just saying the word medicine over and over. You have to actually take the medicine. In the same way, you don't achieve spiritual deliverance by just repeating the word Brahman. You have to experience it. The whole point of the perennial philosophy isn't just to be a cool theory. It's supposed to be a map that leads you to that direct experience.
So, we'll leave you with this final thought, which kind of turns Huxley's whole philosophy back on you as a personal question. If all these mystics and sages from around the world are right, if your innermost self really is one with the ultimate ground of all being, then what does that actually make you? And what would it mean to truly experience that for yourself?